property of attracting substances with maximum energy, maximum force is called magnetism. They follow inverse square law. The force of attraction or repulsion between two poles, it is directly proportional to the product of their pole strength and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. It is proportional to m1 m2 by d square, where m1 m2 are the pole magnetic pole strengths and d is the distance of separation. And also we have discussed some basic definitions such as magnetic dipole and magnetic dipole moment, magnetic induction, magnetic field intensity, magnetic permeability, magnetic susceptibility, magnetic field intensity. All these basic definitions we have once again reviewed. You have to know all these in your schooling only. Then, basing on the nature and magnetic behavior, the magnetic materials are classified into 5 categories. According to classical theory only, there are 3 types of magnetic materials: diamagnetic, paramagnetic, and ferromagnetic materials. Again, after quantum theory, when microstructures of atomic regions, when they have studied, they exhibit certain magnetic behavior. So, they are in broad, they are classified as diamagnetic materials, paramagnetic materials, ferromagnetic materials, anti-ferromagnetic materials, and ferrimagnetic materials, depending on their magnetic properties. So there are 3 important reasons so that a material can exhibit magnetic behavior. In the atomic structure at the center, nucleus is there, and electrons are arranged in different orbitals. So the electron will be moving, revolving around the nucleus in a fixed orbital obeying the quantum rules. So the motion of electron will be considered as a current loop, which produces certain magnetic moment. And in that sense, number of electrons which are in the orbital moment, they will contribute for the magnetic moment. So the magnetic moment, because of the orbital motion of electrons, is one reason. And the second one, along with orbital motion, the electron spins about its own axis. The spinning of electron also contributes certain magnetic moment, which is a spin magnetic moment. So it is also one of the reasons so that a material will be exhibiting magnetic property. And at the same time, the nucleus is also rotates about its own axis, which causes certain magnetic moment. But once you compare with orbital angular momentum and spin magnetic moment, it is the strength is almost 1 by 2000 times of this one. It can be negligible. But anyhow, these 3 are the major factors: the spin of the nucleus, the orbital momentum of electron, and the spin of electron are the main reasons for the magnetic behavior of certain materials. So, many theories are evolved to explain the magnetic behavior, and magnetic materials are classified. And among these theories, these made a significant contribution to explain the magnetic properties of materials. And we'll once again review the classification of magnetic materials as a ferra, and magnetic materials are classified as diamagnetic materials. Is it visible? Screen, students? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sir, voice breaking, sir.
Why? No, is it okay? Is the voice is okay? No?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the magnetic materials are classified broadly as diamagnetic materials, paramagnetic materials, ferromagnetic materials, anti-ferromagnetic materials, and ferrimagnetic materials. Yesterday in the last part, I have discussed this. I once again repeat this and we'll go further with molecular field theory of materials. And as diamagnetic materials are concerned, diamagnetic materials are the materials which are having zero magnetic dipole. So in these materials, the magnetic dipoles are oriented in such a way that the resultant dipole moment is zero. So there is no dipole concept at all. And whenever a diamagnetic material is subjected to external magnetic fields, the dipoles, they orient in the direction opposite to the direction of the applied field. So it repels the magnetic lines of force. It won't accept the magnetic lines of force, and also it repels the magnetic lines of force. So the induced dipole moment in the presence of magnetic field, it opposes the magnetic field. So they exhibit negative magnetic susceptibility, and which is of the order of 10 to the power of -6. And this susceptibility is independent of temperature and external field. Even though diamagnetic substance is subjected to external magnetic field, it will not behave as a magnet. Even though the temperature rises, there is no dipole alignment in the direction of the field. So it is independent of temperature as well as the applied magnetic field. So these materials are diamagnetic materials: bismuth, hydrogen, sodium chloride, copper. All these are examples of diamagnetic material. And coming to the next one, paramagnetic materials. So paramagnetic materials, these materials possess a permanent magnetic moment, but in the absence of the applied magnetic field, all magnetic dipoles, there are dipoles present in the material, but these dipoles, they orient randomly and will not give any magnetic moment because the net magnetization is zero because of the random orientation of magnetic dipoles. But these materials, they exhibit positive magnetic susceptibility, and as the magnetization coincides in the direction of the magnetic field. That means whenever a paramagnetic substance is under the influence of external magnetic field, slowly the magnetic dipoles, which are randomly oriented, they align in the direction of applied field, so that they exhibit certain magnetization in this direction, giving rise to strong magnetic properties. So they have positive values of susceptibility of the order 10 to the power of -6, and the relative permeability, it is the capacity of a material to allow magnetic lines of force. It is more than 1. It accepts the magnetic lines of force, and in the presence of the field, the magnetic lines are pulled out towards the material, and they are permitted in the material. And this behavior, paramagnetic behavior, it depends on temperature. So as you raise the temperature, then what happens? The material is under the influence of external magnetic field, and the dipoles are aligned in the direction of the field. But as the temperature rises, again this temperature randomizes the magnetic dipoles so that it becomes a diamagnetic material. So it loses its magnetic behavior as in the temperature. As the temperature rises, even in the presence of external magnetic field. The examples are oxygen and the solutions of iron salts, some alloys of iron, copper chloride, chromium. All these are examples of paramagnetic substance. But the advantage is the same material in the absence of the field can be treated as a diamagnetic substance, but in the presence of the field it can be a ferromagnetic material. So you can use on either way. So you see the diagram. In the absence of the field, the dipoles are randomly oriented. In the presence of the field, all magnetic dipoles align in the direction of the field, giving rise to magnetic properties. And they allow the magnetic lines of force. They have slightly positive susceptibility values, and permeability is more than 1. These materials, these are called as paramagnetic materials. And the third category, they are ferromagnetic materials. So ferromagnetic materials, they are exhibiting a spontaneous magnetization. So this is a special property of the material. These materials possess permanent magnetic moment because of their spin magnetic moment. So in ferromagnetic materials, the spin of electron is, that means they have many unpaired electrons in this structure. Each electron contributes certain spin magnetic moment, and the spin magnetic moment plays a major role for the magnetic behavior of a ferromagnetic material. They exhibit spontaneous magnetization. So when the ferromagnet placed in a magnetic field, it will be strongly magnetized in the direction of the field. And even though in the presence of the field, the neighboring dipoles having interaction, even there is no field, and this causes certain internal molecular field. And in the ferromagnetic material, you can observe a number of atomic regions which are called as the domains. In each domain, magnetic moments are aligned in one particular direction, giving rise to a certain magnetization. That means it can be considered as a combination of clusters. In each cluster, you have some net magnetization. So because of this, in the presence of the field, all these domain structure, they align in the direction of the field, giving rise to very strong magnetic properties. And ferromagnetic materials having spontaneous magnetization, even in the absence of external magnetic field, they have certain magnetic behavior. And when field is applied, in the presence of the external field, they are strongly magnetized, and they exhibit the important phenomena that can be exhibited by a ferromagnetic material is magnetic hysteresis. This will discuss in detail afterwards. And in the presence of the field, if you see the diagram, the right side one, in the presence of the field, it allows all magnetic lines of force inside it, so that they exhibit strong magnetic properties and they shows magnetostriction effect. In the last class, I have explained when a magnetic material a magnetic field is applied along its magnetic axis, then it vibrates along its mechanical axis. The converse of that is also true. Whenever a ferromagnetic material vibrates along its mechanical axis, it produces magnetic field. So this is called as magnetostriction. This is a special type behavior of a ferromagnetic material. And the value of magnetic susceptibility is large for these materials and depends on temperature. So whenever you apply certain magnetic field to a ferromagnetic material, readily it accepts all magnetic lines of force and susceptibility is very high, much greater than 1. And it depends on temperature. So the critical temperature at which a ferromagnet becomes paramagnet is called as Curie temperature. So when the ferromagnet is in the presence of external magnetic field, now you raise the temperature, then what happens at a temperature known as Curie temperature? This magnetic dipoles again they take random orientation and net magnetization becomes zero, it becomes a paramagnet. So the temperature at which a ferromagnet becomes paramagnet is called Curie temperature. So up to Curie temperature, it is a ferromagnet obeys Curie-Weiss law and exhibits a spontaneous magnetization, and above Curie temperature, it becomes a paramagnetic substance. And the magnetic susceptibility is very high. Chi is very high because of the spontaneous magnetization and because of the exchange interactions, the electrons or atoms which are present, they interact mutually with each other, creating certain internal field. Because of that, they exhibit internal molecular field and they exhibit spontaneous magnetization. So this is a special feature of ferromagnetic material. In this theory of ferromagnetic materials, we'll discuss in detail what are the basic features of a ferromagnetic material. And this ferromagnetic material or substance, it obeys Curie-Weiss law given by chi-m is equal to C by T minus Tc, where C is Curie temperature, T is absolute temperature, Tc is Curie temperature. So at this up to this temperature, it follows Curie-Weiss law, and it is a strong magnet having the spontaneous magnetization. At the Curie temperature or above Curie temperature, it loses its magnetic behavior and it becomes a paramagnetic material. So it strongly depends on temperature. And you see in the figure also ferromagnetic material, all domains they have specific orientation in one particular direction. There is no random movement. So in each region, it has certain magnetization, magnetic movement. And up to Curie temperature, it is a ferromagnet. You can see the graph. And above Curie temperature, it is a paramagnetic material. And remember, it is a material specific phenomena. For different materials, in a broad way, you can take like this. But depending on the structure and the number of unfilled electrons, the magnetic behavior, even in a ferromagnetic material, will be changing. But this is a broad concept. We explained a general expression for the behavior of a ferromagnetic material, and the susceptibility is given by chi-m is equal to C by T minus Tc, where C is Curie constant and Tc is the absolute temperature. So these are the three, according to classical theory, types of magnetic materials. From quantum theory, at very low temperature, you can find two more magnetic materials. The first one, it is called as antiferromagnetic material. So antiferromagnetic materials, in these materials, the magnetic dipoles are anti-parallel to each other. And this is due to the exchange interaction between the dipoles, but the magnitudes of these dipoles are equal. So they are oppositely oriented or anti-parallel, but the magnitude is same. Because of this, the net magnetization is zero, and the susceptibility is slightly positive, and it is occurring at very low temperature. If you see this one, you can find there is no difference between paramagnetic material and ferromagnetic material. But you should understand this. An antiferromagnetic behavior, it is at very low temperature only. At high temperature, it is a paramagnet, and phase transition occurs only between antiferromagnetic and paramagnetic materials. Of course, these are ferromagnetic materials. But at the low temperature, at very low temperature, they have the magnetic moments are anti-parallel with each other, having same magnitude. Because of this, the net magnetization is zero, and it occurs only at very low temperature. And when the temperature rises, then the temperature known as Neal temperature (Tn), a ferromagnetic material, antiferromagnetic material becomes a paramagnetic substance. So up to Neal temperature, it has certain positive susceptibility value, some magnetization it shows, but above Neal temperature, it becomes a paramagnet. Manganese oxide, ferrous sulfide, all these are typical examples of these antiferromagnetic materials. They occur at very low temperature only. Still, research is going on why this behavior endoferromagnetic material. For different materials, this nature will be different. And 1 minute. So as I said, only it has two regions, and the susceptibility is inversely proportional to the temperature. So as the temperature increases, susceptibility decreases. It means it loses its magnetic behavior. And the relation for ferromagnetic material, chi-m is equal to C by T minus Tc, but here it is C by T plus theta. T is greater than Tn. So it's a peculiar behavior. So up to mean temperature, it is anti-ferromagnetic region. It has magnetic dipoles anti-parallel each other with equal magnitude, but shows a slight magnetization. But at the Neal temperature and above Neal temperature, it behaves as a paramagnetic material. So these are called as anti-ferromagnetic materials. Examples, as I said, ferrous oxide, manganese oxide, chromium oxide, MnF2, etc. These are the examples of anti-ferromagnetic materials. And finally, one more class of materials which are ferrimagnetic materials. So the difference is in ferrimagnetic materials, the magnetic dipoles are anti-parallel but with different magnitudes. In the previous case, they are anti-parallel with same magnitude, but here the magnetic dipoles are anti-parallel with different magnitudes. Because of that, they have some net magnetic moment, and because of that, they exhibit small magnetization in different regions. And you can see in the diagram, in one region, the anti-parallel, but the magnitudes are different. Because of this, which magnitude is dominant in that direction, it gives certain magnetization. And ferrimagnetic materials, these are similar to ferromagnetic materials in their macroscopic magnetic characteristics. So at larger scale, at higher level, how a ferromagnetic material behaves in the microstructure, a ferrimagnetic material, it behaves like this. And the saturation magnetization decreases with increasing temperature until Curie temperature. That means as the temperature increases, then the susceptibility decreases and the entire saturation magnetization vanishes at Curie temperature. And above Tc, they exhibit paramagnetic behavior. That means above Curie temperature, when a ferrite or ferrimagnetic material is heated, again the magnetic dipoles, they take random orientation, net magnetization becomes zero. But surprisingly here, why you are calling it as ferrimagnetic material, they won't follow Curie-Weiss law. And susceptibility is a non-linear function of temperature. So it's basically the very micro mechanism how the spin of electron oriented in the presence of the external magnetic field at a particular temperature is important for defining the magnetic behavior. And these materials, ferrimagnetic materials, they won't follow this Curie-Weiss law because they have explained on the basis of quantum theory, and the susceptibility is a non-linear function of temperature. Only you should understand this because it is a complicated one. Still, work is going on. What is the ferrite structure? The applications are wide. Composites, alloys, metallic alloys, all they are made up of different ferrites for different applications. And at the micro level, you can, for designing these flip circuits, you use these ferrites. And you can understand only this if ferrimagnetic material, it is a material in which it has the magnetic dipoles are anti-parallel with different magnitudes, and the susceptibility is slightly positive. The materials possess net magnetic moment because of difference in magnitudes. Examples are ferrous oxide, that is Fe3O4, NiFe2O4, all this. And the relation between susceptibility and temperature is a non-linear relation, and it won't follow Curie-Weiss law. It is material specific. For different materials, this behavior will be different. So these materials, these are called as ferrimagnetic materials. So in a general way, you can understand ferromagnetic material. If you see the diagram, magnetic dipoles are they oriented in one particular direction, and they are aligned parallel, giving rise to strong magnetization below Curie temperature. Above Curie temperature, they take random orientation. Second one, antiferromagnetic material. They have magnetic dipoles, but anti-parallel each other with the same magnitude. So up to need temperature, the spins are aligned anti-parallel and susceptibility is slightly positive. Above need temperature, it becomes a paramagnetic substance. And the third one is a ferrimagnetic material. In this, the magnetic dipoles are anti-parallel but with different magnitudes. So below Curie temperature, the spins are aligned anti-parallel but they do not cancel. Because of that, they exhibit slightly positive susceptibility values and permeability values, and you can assume that they are ferromagnets in the microscale. So this is ferrimagnetic material. Ferrites are typical examples of this ferrimagnetic material. And finally, paramagnetic materials. Paramagnetic materials, in a large scale, the spins are randomly oriented, and whether it is above Tc or Tn, and it will not contribute for the magnetic moment. When they are subjected to external magnetic field, then a paramagnetic becomes a ferromagnetic material. So this is the classification of ferromagnetic, anti-ferromagnetic, ferrimagnetic, and paramagnetic. Of course, diamagnetic materials, they repel the magnetic lines, of course. In the presence of the field, you can see the diagram. No applied magnetic field is, there is no applied magnetic field. If you see the bottom diamagnet, there is no dipole. But in the presence of the field, the dipoles are created, but they orient in the opposite to the direction of the applied field, so that they repel the magnetic lines, of course. And if you take a paramagnetic material, magnetic dipoles are there, they are randomly oriented. So in the presence of the field, they align the direction of the field, giving rise to magnetization. Ferromagnetic material, even in the absence of applied field, magnetic dipoles align in one particular direction, giving rise to spontaneous magnetization. It is because of internal molecular field. And in the presence of the field, this becomes more stronger. So all magnetic dipoles align in the direction of the field, giving rise to strong magnetic properties for the material. These are called as ferromagnetic materials. So classification of magnetic materials as a diamagnetic, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic materials. These five, what actually the material, how the alignment will be there, what is the effect of temperature, and a few examples you should give for each case. It may be describe the different types of magnetic materials, describe the behavior of or classify magnetic materials, then you should write all these five. In a table you can write, otherwise in this note sense also with the neat diagrams. So what actually the materials and how, what is the susceptibility value, how it varies, what is the permeability, and what is the nature of magnetic dipoles, whether they depend on temperature or not. Then Curie-Weiss law you should write, and examples. So this what I have explained now, that you should write as a notes for classification of magnetic materials. Is it okay, students? Any doubt in this? Girls? Just respond, anyone? Shall I proceed?
Yes,
Shall I
sir.
proceed? Okay. So next one, this is very, very important to take down the heading, Weiss molecular field theory of ferromagnetism. Please take the heading. Weiss molecular field theory of ferromagnetism. WE, you can see the photo also, is father of this magnetic, ferromagnetic materials, you can say. He did exclusively on the magnetic behavior of ferromagnetic behavior of materials. Weiss molecular field theory of ferromagnetism. Better this you write on the paper. If I explain these steps, probably you can recollect very easily. First you listen, wherever I will explain, then you can copy this. So initially the classification of magnetic materials was done basing on the nature. Some are diamagnetic materials, some are paramagnetic materials, some ferro, antiferro, and ferrimagnetic materials. Why a ferromagnetic material exhibits spontaneous magnetization? What permits? Because even you take diamagnetic material, number of electrons are available, and each electron contributes for orbital angular momentum, magnetic moment, as well as the spin magnetic moment, but they are diamagnetic in nature. But ferromagnetic material, even though they have less number of electrons, these materials exhibit spontaneous magnetization. Why this difference? Even though each and every material is having plenty of electrons, some are diamagnetic, some are paramagnetic in nature, some are ferromagnetic materials like that. And why a ferromagnetic material behaves as a permanent magnet and exhibiting strong magnetic properties, and what permits a material ferromagnet to behave as is to exhibit spontaneous magnetization. So many theories are evolved. Among an important theory which is based on quantum theory is called as Weir's molecular field theory. So we try to explain the behavior of ferromagnet, why it exhibits spontaneous magnetization. So only we discuss here only the qualitative salient features of molecular field theory and also the expression for the magnetic susceptibility of a ferromagnetic material. Small derivation is there. According to Weir's theory, in ferromagnetic materials, internal molecular field is responsible for parallel alignment of magnetic dipoles even in the absence of magnetic field. So, in a ferromagnetic material, there exists some internal molecular field. Because of this internal molecular field, all magnetic dipoles align in one particular direction, giving rise to certain magnetization. This sets up some spontaneous magnetization in the material. So even in the absence of applied field, because of the internal molecular field, the magnetic dipoles orient in one particular direction, giving rise to certain spontaneous magnetization. And therefore, whenever you apply certain external magnetic field to a ferromagnetic substance, the effective magnetic field, it is the sum of the internal molecular field and external molecular field. That's why effective magnetic field can be the sum of H plus Hi, where H is the external magnetic field and Hi is the internal molecular field. So this is the first concept of this molecular field theory. According to this theory, write down, according to this molecular field theory, the same what I wrote in PPT, in ferromagnetic materials, internal molecular field is responsible in ferromagnetic materials, internal molecular field is responsible in ferromagnetic materials, internal molecular field is responsible for parallel alignment of magnetic dipoles. Internal molecular field is responsible for parallel alignment of magnetic dipoles. All please write on the book so that you can understand this theory. Parallel alignment of magnetic dipoles. This sets up spontaneous magnetization in the material. This sets up spontaneous magnetization in the material. This sets up spontaneous magnetization in the material. In the presence of the field, otherwise you write in the presence of external magnetic field, in the presence of external magnetic field, the effective magnetic field is given by the effective magnetic field is given by the effective magnetic field is given by H effective is equal to H plus Hi. H effective is equal to H plus Hi, where H is external magnetic field, Hi is the internal molecular field. So both will work on the material. The presence of external magnetic field and also the internal molecular field because of the alignment of dipoles themselves. So H is the internal molecular field. So effective magnetic field is H plus H. But Hi is equal to lambda into M. The expression for internal molecular field Hi is equal to lambda into M. Please write down. Hi is equal to lambda into M, where lambda is molecular field coefficient and M is magnetization. Lambda is molecular field coefficient, M is magnetization. We have actually H effective is H plus Hi, but Hi is lambda M. Therefore, H effective is equal to H plus lambda into M. This is equation 1. What actually molecular field coefficient do? It determines the intensity of interaction between the dipoles. So how much two magnetic dipoles are interacted mutually with each other is represented by a term lambda, which is called as molecular field coefficient, into the magnetization will give you the internal molecular field. So Hi is lambda into M. Therefore, H effective is equal to H plus lambda M. And you write down lambda determines the intensity of interaction between the dipoles. Intensity of interaction between the dipoles. Please note down. Shall I proceed? The students, please respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the reason is how internal molecular field is present in a given material. It is explained based on quantum theory. So according to Weis theory, in ferromagnetic materials, the electrons in certain shells have unbalanced spins. So the electrons will be arranged in different orbitals, 1s2, 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, 3d like that. So in ferromagnetic materials exclusively, the electrons in certain shells have unbalanced spins. So write down this. According to Weis theory, in ferromagnetic materials, the electrons in certain shells have unbalanced spins. So the spins of these unbalanced electrons will interact with each other. That means in an orbital, one electron is there, which is unpaired electron having certain spin. It is interacting with the neighboring atom, the electron neighboring atom. So these interactions takes place commonly in ferromagnetic materials, and these interactions are called as exchange interactions. And the interactions, energy or interactions can be described in terms of exchange integral represented by capital J. So this is only possible in ferromagnetic materials. So the orbitals, outermost orbitals can overlap with each other or can interact with each other so that the electrons will be interacting with adjacent atoms, and these interactions are called as exchange interactions. It is only possible in ferromagnetic materials, and these interactions can be described in terms of a quantum mechanical parameter known as exchange integral J. So they occur according to Weis theory only in elements like iron, cobalt, nickel, etc. So these interactions, because of these interactions, the magnetic moments of unpaired electrons interpenetrated one another and give rise to certain internal molecular field. So when the electrons interact with each other, then they contribute for they certain internal molecular field within the material. So the bottom line here is in ferromagnetic materials, some electrons they have unbalanced spins in certain shells, and like that you have number of atoms and the unbalanced spins of different electrons. They interact with each other. These interactions are called as exchange interactions, and these exchange interactions are described by an exchange integral J. These interactions are possible only in elements like iron, cobalt, nickel. Because of these exchange interactions, the unpaired electrons in different shells interpenetrate or interact with each other, so that they give certain internal molecular field represented by Hi, which is equal to lambda into M. This you should write down. Due to unbalanced spins, interactions occur between the adjacent atoms. Due to unbalanced spins, interactions occur between the adjacent atoms. These interactions are called exchange interactions. These interactions are called exchange interactions and represented by exchange integral J. Represented by exchange integral J. These interactions occur only in elements like iron, cobalt, nickel, etc. These interactions occur only in elements like iron, cobalt, nickel, etc. Due to these interactions, next point, the magnetic moments of unpaired electrons, the magnetic moments of unpaired electrons interpenetrated one another. The magnetic moments of unpaired electrons interpenetrated one another and gives internal molecular field. Electrons interpenetrated one another and gives internal molecular field. Is it clear? So in ferromagnetic materials like iron, cobalt, nickel, the materials in certain shells have unbalanced spins. So these unbalanced spin electrons interact with the adjacent atoms. So they cause certain create certain energy. These interactions are expressed by exchange integral J, and because of this, some internal molecular field is present in the ferromagnetic material. Then you write down from quantum theory, this energy, the interaction energy between ith and jth electrons of a ferromagnetic material is given by E internal is equal to, you take this expression straight away, minus 2j sigma Si Sj cos pi ij, where Si Sj are spins of ith and jth electrons respectively, and pi ij is the angle between magnetic moments of two spins. You have ith electrons, jth electrons like that. Let us assume spins of ith and jth electrons. They interact with each other. Because of these interactions, they have certain exchange integral. So the interaction energy is represented by E internal is equal to minus 2j sigma Si Sj cos pi ij, where Si Sj are spins of ith and jth electrons respectively. Pi ij is the angle between the magnetic moments of two spins. So what to take? We should take the resultant of this. That is the point here. So Si spin represents the spin of ith electrons. Sj represents the spin of jth electrons. Both will interact with each other, making an angle pi j. So the resultant energy is in terms of exchange integral given by minus 2j sigma Si Sj cos pi j. Like that, it happens in many atomic regions. Please note, and diagram also. You can see the diagram. Did you copy, students, boys?
Yes, sir.
Girls, shall I go to next slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also, according to Wee's theory, the exchange integral J is a function of ratio of interatomic spacing to the unfilled shell radius. So, unfilled shell radius means in ferromagnetic materials, number of shells have unbalanced spin. That means all are not completely filled by the electrons. So because that's why if one is parallel, certain one is anti-parallel, both to get cancel each other. But here is not the case. So there are number of unbalanced spins in a ferromagnetic material. So the exchange integral, it is a function of the ratio of interatomic spacing. So what is the distance between two atomic regions, because they are interacting with each other, and also the unfilled shell radius, that is J is equal to function of A by R, where A is the interatomic spacing and R is unfilled shell radius. And once you plot a graph by taking J along y-axis, A by R along x-axis, you can find this one. And from the graph, it is clear that for ferromagnetic materials, this relation is positive. For paramagnetic materials, it is negative. That's why paramagnetic materials, the exchange interactions are nullified each other. That's why it has a negative impact for the exchange integral. Whereas if you take iron, cobalt, nickel, for all these materials, it has a positive value. That means exchange interactions play important significant role for deciding the magnetic behavior, which is positive for these materials. That's why they exhibit spontaneous magnetization. Write this one. According to Wee's theory, the exchange integral J is a function of ratio of interatomic spacing, A, small a, to the unfilled shell radius, small r. Unfilled shell radius, small r. That is, J is equal to function of f of A by R. And the plot between J versus A by R is as follows. You take the diagram. Here it is, I have copied from Google because here it is given A by D, but better you write A by R along x-axis. Remaining everything is same. Some alloys of iron.
Last slide better.
What man?
Before slide
slide. Is there?
Okay, sir.
Take this diagram. Here is in the graph, it is given along x-axis A by D. You just denominate that naming the term is different. A by R you take. And you write down after this, from the graph it is clear that for ferromagnetic materials this relation is positive. Iron, cobalt, nickel, they are at the positive side of the graph. Thus, they exhibit spontaneous magnetization and obeys Curie-Weiss law given by xm is equal to chi m is equal to C by T minus Tc. You write that also. where chi m is the susceptibility, C is Curie constant, Tc is Curie temperature. T is Curie temperature. Five minutes I'll take. Still. Shall I proceed for the next slide? Girls, did you copy
Yes,
with
sir.
that? Boys, shall I proceed, boys? Shall I go to the next slide? Somebody
Yes, sir.
respond. Okay. So it's only a Weiss theory of ferromagnetism. Expression for Curie Weiss law we are going to define. No need to write what actually we have discussed. That only you should write. You write down this one. H effective is equal to H plus lambda m, which is equation 1. The effective magnetic field is the sum of external field and internal molecular field. Internal molecular field is lambda into m. Therefore, H effective is equal to H plus lambda m, equation 1. The what it is a repetition of the first point of this field of ferromagnetism. To write down, we have H effective is equal to H plus lambda m. Okay. Next. But we know this, you should take directly. M is equal to magnetization, M is equal to mu naught mu square N into H effective by 3 kT. This step we should take. This is derived from Langevins theory of paramagnetism. From that, there is an expression for magnetization M that we are taking directly here. So you should remember this. There is no option, but we know M is equal to mu naught U square N H effective by 3 kT. So that can be again written as mu naught U square N by 3 kT. H effective can be H plus lambda into M. This is equation 2, where mu naught is permeability of free space, mu is permeability of the medium, N is number of molecules per unit volume, K is Boltzmann constant, T is absolute temperature or Kelvin scale temperature. This is equation 2. Please note down. Instead of H effective, we should substitute here H plus lambda m. M is equal to. Please note down. And write this parameter. Otherwise, you take a screenshot, steps you write, and the terms mu naught is permeability of free space, mu is permeability of the medium, n the number of molecules per unit volume, K is Boltzmann constant, and T is absolute temperature. Did you understood this? Just instead of H effective, we have substituted H plus lambda m, isn't it? Shall I go to the next slide? Boys?
Yes, sir.
And we are simplifying this. You are bringing and you are taking m common. So it can be m into 1 minus mu naught mu square by n lambda by 3 kT is equal to mu naught mu square n by 3 kT into h. This is equation 3. Just we have taken m as common and get in the got it in the left hand side. You can write that expression. Then you define, let us assume mu naught mu square n by 3k is C and Tc is equal to C lambda, where Tc is Curie temperature. Please note down. Let us assume mu naught mu square n by 3k is C and Tc is equal to C lambda, equation 5. And substitute in equation 3. 4, 5, you substitute in equation 3. So mu naught mu square n by 3k can be taken as C and Tc is C into lambda. So by substituting 4 and 5 in equation 3, we will get m into 1 minus t by Tc is equal to Ch by T, equation 6. But m is equal to chi m into h, or chi m is equal to m by h, equation 7. So you can equate these two. Instead of m, if you put the chi m into h, h gets cancelled in equation 6, and finally you can obtain chi m is equal to m by h, that is equal to c by t minus tc, equation 8. This equation is called as Curie-Weiss law, and c is known as Curie constant, and tc is Curie temperature. Just we have rearranged the terms. Left hand side, which is with the m, we took them to the left hand side, and you can take m as common, and you should assume mu naught mu square m by n by 3k is c. And by doing these substitutions, you can arrive equation 6, m into 1 minus t by tc is equal to ch by t. But m can be written as chi m into h, so h gets cancelled. So chi m is equal to t by c by t minus tc, equation 8, and this equation is known as Curie-Weiss law. And you remember, describe Weiss molecular field theory, you need not derive this. Specifically obtain an expression for susceptibility of a ferromagnetic material, then you should derive this. And basing on the marks, you should decide. So in this way, you should answer the question. So at this juncture, I'll stop for today. And we'll take attendance. So in the next class, I will discuss magnetic hysteresis and the classification of Weiss domain theory, soft and hard magnetic materials, and finally ferrites. 4 small topics are there. I'll try to complete this magnetic materials so that I can start the superconductivity in the next class. Okay. So today in the session we have discussed the classification, reviewed the classification of magnetic materials, and specifically the ferromagnetic behavior of materials, what are the properties of ferromagnetic materials, and Weiss molecular field theory, and the expression for magnetic susceptibility for a ferromagnetic substance. This we have discussed in today's session, and the next class we will discuss Weiss domain theory, magnetic hysteresis, then types of ferromagnetic materials and ferrites. This we will discuss in the next class. Respond for the attendance.